Guilty Gear Strive Season 2's mid-season patch has been out for a little while. I've been playing a good bit of it, and I think it's about time your boy expresses his thoughts about the mid-season patch. So we're gonna cut right to it. We're gonna talk about the characters, see who's goated, see who's great, who's solid, who's still in a good place, and yeah, let's just cut right to it. Not really a tier list, right? But I want to do a little bit different, and we're just gonna talk about who's goated right now, who's great, who's in a good place, and who's solid right now in this patch, right? So off rip, we already know Happy Chaos is still goated. This guy is still tearing it up in the game right now. There's, you know, all the measures that they keep taking to kind of make him not as good or make him a lot less overbearing, they're still really good, you know what I mean? So right now Happy Chaos is still doing his thing. He's still good. There's not too much to say about this guy, but he still is roughly the king of Guilty Gear Strive. Moving forward, Ramlethal, we already know Ram right now, even though they nerfed Ram's Rekkas, Ram is still in a place where she's strong. She's very simplistic to play. She does have some nuances to her, but the patch didn't really hurt her to the point to where like she got any weaker. So she's still goated. She's still up there. She's still amazing. Ram is still Ram, essentially, right? All right. And then from that point, I would say Nagoriyuki, he's not necessarily goated right now because, you know, he did take some nerfs. He's great right now. He's not overbearing as much as he used to be, but he's still a character that can mess you up when played properly. You know, the level 2 blood, you know, damage reduction on him is still kind of like, that's good for a lot of characters. You know, him taking a bit more damage when he's in level 2 blood is really good. It lets a lot of characters contest him a little bit more. You know, it makes kind of wanting to contest him a lot more worth it because you know you're going to dish out the damage. They'll still delete you if you make a mistake. However, you can also run it back against him based on his blood level, right? So still a good character, still great. He's still doing good, right? Another character whom is doing great right now is still Zato. I think Zato's still in a very good position. He's not too bad. He's not overbearing. If he makes you block, he can be overbearing. But right now, he's still doing really good. He's not really in a position where he's horrible or anything of that nature. So good on him. Good quality of life buffs for the character at the moment, I feel. Right about now, this character, Axel, I gotta give him credit. I think right now he's very goated right now. He is amazing. I think his changes right now have been some of the most interesting, and it also makes him kind of be in a position where, like, you know, he's not awful. And even then, a lot of people were saying he wasn't very good previously and saying he's kind of like lowish end, maybe mid tier, and like for whatever reason that guy is always in top 8 of tournaments, you know what I mean? But even more so now, he's even more so top 8 material. I feel like he's in a place right now where like he's dangerous now. If he touches you, you can explode because they buffed his combo game. They buffed him to he's just super juiced right now. Again, not a tier list, not saying he's the god. I'm just saying right now he's in a position where he's pretty goated right now. Like picking up Axel's definitely not a bad choice. Not a bad choice at all. I would say another character who I think right now is in a goated position is definitely Giovanna. I feel right now her changes, while to some may seem very subtle, I think that they're really good because now she went from being really straightforward to being straightforward with even more damage. Her damage output was already good before, so let's not get it twisted, but even more so now strictly because, you know what I mean, like the way that they buffed her normals, like her crouching H, you know, has vacuum effect. It's kind of scary to get hit by her now because she can turn just about anything into even bigger damage than it was before. And you know, she does have really good meter gain as well, so that helps her get into, you know, her overdrive, and it's just nutty. Like her being able to get all that meter and go into her Hulk mode even before positive bonus and even after positive bonus, getting the damage buff and defensive buff. Like she's good right now. She's definitely a good pickup. If you've been thinking about playing Giovanna, I think now's a good time to pick her up. She's really good right now. I think right now Bridget, this character is doing great right now. a lot of the changes that Bridget got were very, very, very good, really good quality of life changes. And for what it's worth, Bridget got so many changes that just made Bridget woo. You know what I mean? And from what I've played recently, against a lot of the Bridget players, a lot of things have changed with the character, a lot of new setups and things like that. So it's kind of good to see the characters like evolved in such a short period of time. So Bridget's doing good right now. If you think about playing Bridget, go for it. Really good position right now. Really, really, really good position. One character I think people kind of underrate now is Gold Lewis, and I think Gold Lewis is in a good place. He was goated, you know, previous patch because, you know, he had drone was really strong, couldn't really do too much about it outside of kind of dash up and kind of block it out and let it kind of go away. Not everyone, you know, wants to do that option. Not everyone has a run, etc., etc. So the change to drone kind of made people feel some kind of way, but to be honest with you, he's still in a good position to where, like, you know, he's still doing his thing, you know. So, and you know, they did change some other things about him that make him even stronger in some areas. So the nerf to drone is just kind of like they just removed the derp and just said, hey, play a little bit more, you know what I mean? So definitely in a good place right now. He's definitely in a good place right now. I think another character who I think is also in a good place right now is Leo. Nothing too drastic, nothing too overbearing. I think he's still a really good character. Nothing really hurts about him as far as I'm concerned, and from what I've seen. He's still doing his thing. He's still running amok. So if you've been playing him, you're not really hurting. If you wanted to pick him up, nothing wrong with that either. Good character, good solid character right now. Definitely in a good place with what they changed about him. I want to talk about some solid characters really quick, because I know we talked about, you know, in a good place, great, and then I goated, but let's talk about some solid characters really quick. I think right now, who's solid, definitely Soul, definitely Kai. I think both these characters are doing really good right now. Neither of them are in a really bad position. I know some people feel some type of way about Soul losing forward 6S or forward slash. That command normal is very good. It did used to launch, but it doesn't launch anymore. But he did get a faster gun flame, so that does allow him to do a little bit more, I guess, better pressure, if you will, a little bit more safer pressure at the exchange of a combo route, which, to be honest with you, he's already doing a lot of damage as it is anyway. Soul has some of the most routes in the game, especially on release all the way up until now. They've nerfed his routes quite a bit, but he's still a character that has a lot of combo routing in the anyway. So, and from what I've seen so far, a lot of the Soul players have already really adjusted to it, even though it's a little bit of a bellyache, but he's still in a good place. Kai, a lot of the same, you know, nothing too overbearing, nothing too terrible about him. Good middle of the road character, damage output, everything about him still solid. So he's not really terrible. None of these characters are terrible whatsoever. So yeah, we're definitely doing good here with these two. So if you're playing Soul and Kai, I mean, I know you may have been looking for something super extra, but from what I've seen so far, as long as you're playing solid and playing really good, like, these characters still shine. So I'm definitely happy to see where these two are at right now. Another character which I think is pretty much in a solid position too, I think, is Ino. She's not really hurting too terribly. You know, Daru's still been doing a lot of work with her in Korea. A lot of Ino players are still doing work right now. Obviously, there's some things that are, you know, kind of to be desired, but I think they just try to take away some of the, you know, the easy mode derp. I think what they did was they just didn't want her mix up and things like that to be super over the top. Like, she already has a lot of good things going for her, so, you know, any super major change to her could be catastrophic. I think they're just trying to avoid, like, the Rev 2 situation where she kind of went under the radar for, like, the entirety of Xrd and just got nothing but buffs. So they're taking a very, you know, careful approach to her from what I can tell so far, but so far so good. She doesn't seem like she's bad though. Some might argue a little bit, but I think she's in a place where, like, just about everything works for her for the most part. So solid. She's solid. Now, we can't talk about solids without talking about Boy Wonder. Sin, I think, is in a good place. He's solid. He's just solid. You know what I mean? He's a good character for the most part. He does have some things that seem very underrated. I understand people thought he's going to come into the game like Xrd and do all this crazy beat driver stuff and, like, steal your life bar, but it's not the case. think he's a good, solid character. He could use some love in some areas, to be honest with you, from what I've played. And even me playing against him and playing him myself, I do think far slash and crouching slash could be a bit better in terms of speed. Other than that, I feel like where he's at right now is okay. They could maybe buff his food mechanic a little bit more. Maybe the duration for the buff can last a little bit longer. Maybe he could eat a little bit faster, or the knockdowns be a little bit longer. I don't know, it's really hard to say, but I think it'd be good if his food mechanic was a little bit more prevalent to his game and not really be like a meme. Which, again, let me make me position is right. I don't think it is a meme to begin with. It's just no one's really looking at it as a means of actual approach for the character. So there's my 2 cents on Sin, but I think he's definitely underrated right now. You're gonna have to work with him, not gonna lie to you. From what I've played, you're gonna have to work with him, but some of his rewards could be a bit better. I just don't think he's like super duper bad, right? This is my personal opinion. Go back into solid. I think Potemkin is solid. I think Faust is pretty much for the most part solid. Might even move him up into being in a good place, but I think most of the changes for Potemkin, they're really good quality of life changes, especially to his normals. They allow him to do a little bit more in terms of poking the opponent, and the buff to Heat Knuckle kind of giving you, the vacuum effect, reeling you in. Can be scary. It is shades of Tager from Blaze Blue, if you're familiar with that, with Gadget Finger. Pretty scary stuff. But I think he's, for the most part, he's solid. He's definitely solid. Maybe even both these can go into like in a good place. Like, I think even Faust is in a good position right now. He's not really like, he's not X-Third, he's not old Guilty Gear, but I think the way he works right now is pretty good. It's not terrible. He could use some smaller changes to kind of help him out in some matchups, I feel, but I think at the moment right now, he's definitely in a position where, like, if you understand how to utilize his items even more so now than before, he can be a big time threat, So honestly, I'm kind of concerned about the future of this character personally. He's one of the few characters I can say with a straight face that I'm always concerned about him. Even as a chip player, and even now Jacko, I'm always concerned about Faust because, like, Faust always outranges a lot of people while still being able to attack. And the items, when used properly, they can be just a problem. And I mean, I am describing Faust's general game plan, right? But like, I think it's just worrying to me, like, if he gets another special move, or they buff a normal, they buff his range, it's like, man, or they buff any kind of extra recoveries, it's like, ooh boy, he can be a problem. So I feel like they're slowly kind of building up to that. So he's kind of a character I've been having my eye on, I'm not gonna lie to you. He's definitely a character I've been looking at for a good while. I'm like, you sure, you guys? So, but we'll see. It's always a good thing to see everyone's favorite characters do well in the game, right? So if you like Faust, I think he's definitely in a good place right now. I think definitely Potemkin as well. I think these characters are in good places. They have some changes that I think that are pretty sizable for them, that kind of don't really warrant them to being solid now I'm thinking about it. Like, let me go ahead and talk about Biken. She's still doing great. Like, it's Biken. I did feel some kind of way about her early on in the game, but she's definitely been like tearing it up nowadays. There's a lot of players kind of still running her and stuff like that. So like, even though her change was small, it's like, it's still pretty dang good. You know what I mean? So she's still doing great. She's still doing great this patch. So I'm gonna be real. I'm going to go with Mei, and I think Mei, much like Biken, even though those changes are very subtle, they're still pretty sizable in the grand scheme of things, because movement buffs are always good in Guilty Gear. Let me just tell you straight, movement buffs are always good in Guilty Gear. So the fact that she got that, and there's no major changes to, like, I mean, the dolphin pressure is pretty annoying now, not gonna lie. So if you're playing Mei, you're doing pretty good right now, not gonna lie to you. And if you thought about picking Mei up, go for it. She's definitely worth it now. Her pressure is extremely annoying now. Her movement is even more annoying too, so it's like, she's just still that annoying ass character, to be honest with you. But yeah, Mei is still that annoying little bugger. I'm just gonna keep it a stack. She's still very good. Let's see here, moving forward. I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna save Chip and Jackal for last. I know you guys are probably wondering what I think about these two, of course, right? But we gotta move on. There's three more. I do feel like this one might be a bit of a rough stretch, but I think Testament's pretty goated right now in this patch. The changes to the fireballs definitely made Testament nutty. And some matchups, like Sin versus Testament, for example, that matchup from what I've played is not fun at all as Sin, but the Testament player's having a ball. Now, some argue to some degree that some of the changes to Testament doesn't really hurt Testament's matchups where Testament was already, I guess, losing, if you will, but I think it's just a matter of people just learning to be a bit more crafty around the changes and forcing, you know, those matchups, forcing the hand into those matchups. It's kind of hard to kind of say it entirely in its entirety here. Maybe I'm saying it wrong here, but I guess what I'm trying to say is I think that there's more craftier ways to maybe be able to deal with those matchups based on what I'm hearing. But you know, we'll see. You know, only time will tell. It's still kind of, I can't say it's too early right now. You know, we're about a good month and some change in, so I think there's still room for Testament to grow as well, so don't get it twisted. But generally speaking, I think the changes for Testament were really, really, really good. Anji, good place. I think Anji's changes are definitely in a good place. He's still kind of doing his thing, but you know, for whatever reason, Arxis just keeps buffing his damage. You know, like they keep buffing his combo routes and things like that. So it's like, okay, I guess so. So you know, the ground bounce change, the 5H, and all other things like that, really good. Combo damage, even better. It's just, it's Anji, you know what I mean? I can't even say he's just solid. I think he's really, really, I think right now he's in a position where, like, I think if people kind of explore him a little bit more and do a little bit more work in certain areas, I think they'll see how good he actually is, to be honest. Because I do think he's a character that is a little slept on and maybe could be played a bit better in some cases, but you know, and mind you, I'm not clowning the Anji community that plays him, right? But you know, I think just a bit more exploration in some areas, I think probably see like where he shines at. But overall, like right now, I think he's doing really, really good in this build. So definitely in a good place. Now, this one, I know our last three, right? But this one, this chick right here, this beautiful, voluptuous woman, I think is in a good place. I think a lot of people want her to be great or goated right now. I'm sorry, but Viking kind of does that for you right now. But anyway, no, I'm just joking. But no, in all seriousness, I think like Amelia at the moment is in a position where, honestly, I feel like the only major changes I think Amelia actually needs to be like amazing is I think she just needs more damage on her special moves. That's really it. And maybe make Lust Shaker a bit better. Right, I think those two things, in my personal opinion, could go a very long way for Amelia, to be honest, because I think, you know, one of the greatest things about her is her air game is really, really good. She has a really good sense of like cat and mouse that you kind of gotta deal with when you play her, or you know, play against her for that matter. And right now, with the way her changes are, with her new mix-ups in the corner, I think like that character, if she catches you, she could blend you. But again, it's just the damage output. It's the damage output that I think is the biggest discrepancy for a lot of people that play her. But I think the way she works now, with the new changes, it feels more like you can DPS a lot more. You basically you have ways to keep consistently getting damage. It's just you gotta get that mix up to connect, you know. And I think that's always going to be like her downfall in every Guilty Gear game, is that it requires you to get that mix up. And I do feel like her mix up game is a lot better. So I think now it's the goal is to try to get those corner setups. And I mean, there's just no amount of things that she can do now, you know. So I think we just got to be more crafty, you know, Amelia players. I think it's just time to be a little bit more crafty. Again, I'm not going to sit here and cap and say like she's like the best character ever or anything of that nature. Please don't take my words the wrong way. She's a very good character in a very good place right now. She could just use a little bit more love in smaller areas, and I think a lot of people could be more happy about playing her a bit more. Because right now, of course, it's always the why play Amelia when you can play Viking, and I totally understand. But Amelia at least has the movement that helps make up for where Viking can't. You know what I mean? So that's something to consider. But again, at the end of it all, I think she's in a good place without getting too overly, right? Now lastly, Chip and Jacko, my two characters. Well, if I'm going to be honest with you, I think right now both of these characters are doing great. I think this patch has done good for both of them. But of course, everyone wants to know how I feel about Chip. So I'm gonna be upfront and honest. I think one of my biggest gripes about Chip in this patch isn't that he's bad. I think Chip is actually very good this patch. But one has to wonder why Arxis just keeps buffing his overhead Rekka. I don't know why they keep buffing Senshu when he has other special moves that need love. Like, they've made his game plan more centralized and focused on his Rekkas and not really allowing his other moves to like shine. And this doesn't really surprise me at all, personally. For as long as I've played him, you know, they've always tried to buff. Like, this is the first time I've ever really truly buffed like Rekka like that. You know what I mean? He's had like it where Senshu or Rekka 3, if you will, was a lot faster before, which allowed him to get cooler combos and like Guilty Gear Slash. And I was happy to see that he got it here, but like he doesn't get the ground bounce, instead he gets a sliding knockdown, which isn't necessarily bad, mind you. I'm not complaining about that. He definitely gets a decent scenario afterwards, right? But why keep pushing Chip players to full send that overhead fishing for counter hits? Like, his other tools are like, I think his other tools need love. Now, me personally, and I get it, but the P Alpha change, it's good and it's bad. I thought it was going to launch up a lot higher and allow him to kind of get better conversions, but that's not the case. He does have some like, you know, spacing specific combos with it when trying to get out of the corner, or if his back's to the wall and he alpha blades you and stuff like that, he can get a conversion off of it barring the spacing, but it requires a specific setup, and it's just not, that's not too feasible. It's doable, but it's not something you're going to be doing all the time. You know what I'm saying? So, and you know, it requires you to be in the corner. Like, who wants to be in the corner, right? But it's, you know, and a nice change to 6H or forward heavy slash forcing crouch to get Rekka 3 is nice too, but I don't know. I feel like I would rather Arxis buff P Alpha Blade, honestly. Like, I think it's about time that move got some love, I think. And I don't mean like, oh, we get this cool vacuum effect. I mean like, make it faster or something. You know, if you want to make him better and make all of his, just make the character more well-rounded, I feel like buffing like Alpha Blade would be nice. I know some people probably would disagree, and I think that's okay. But I think allowing him to use that move a bit better outside of like, hey, maybe you'll block it, maybe you won't, maybe you'll match me out, maybe you won't. But most Chip players have pretty much shied away from the move completely, and it's like, it'd be nice for it to have more of a use. And this happens to Chip in every Guilty Gear. I'm just gonna be honest with you guys. So this is gonna be the part where I talk the most, right? It's just Chip they always try to buff Alpha Blade to some degree or make it more interesting to use. But I think like right now, like P Alpha just doesn't feel useful. And I think that's my kind of complaint is like most of the cast, they all have moves that are useful. I feel like right now Chip's just degraded into Rekka, maybe Gamma, just to keep people honest, see where they're at, and you just kind of keep that up. Then you kind of whiff punish. And again, all these options and things I'm mentioning, these are all great things about him. Do not get it twisted. I would just like to see the special moves get used a little bit more. Or if they didn't want to buff P Alpha, then I'm still of the opinion jump dust could be a bit better. Maybe 7 frames, maybe, I think it's 8 frames now. You can make it maybe 6, maybe make it 7. Just so, you know, if he hits with K Alpha, he can do JD and have the option to do what he used to do previously. To kind of just help him maintain his pressure after he hits you with K Alpha if you happen to get hit by it. You know what I mean? Or do what they did in the previous build, you know, the very first build of the game. Not the one that we could play, but when he had K Alpha into P Alpha, like allow that to be a thing, but give him something. Because I think right now, he's just a very straightforward punish, like with punish character. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all. I do think he's really good right now. I am having a lot more fun playing him, and it's probably because I don't play him as much. But if I had to play him at 100%, I would probably tear my hair out because he's insanely boring. But that's a story for another time. No worries, you guys. I still love the character. Don't get it twisted. Now, as for the Queen, Jacko, as I mentioned before, I think she's in a great place right now. The change to how minions get hit off of her crouching slash is really, really good. It allows her to actually attack people, and it's kind of a cool little surprise attack, if you will. So it makes it so you don't have to be so straightforward with how you throw minions at the opponent. Her approach now is just so much greater because of it, and she has a lot more new neat setups in the corner that allow her to kind of like loop pressure, if you will. Of course, it does lose to FD, and there are other ways to kind of mitigate losing to FD, but I think right now where she is, and I do think she's one of the best characters in the game right now still, she's doing good. It's a very subtle change, right? But if you're a Jackal player, you kind of understand how really good that thing is. So, and I memed, on my stream that, the 2S buff for minions is just, that is a Kensu specific buff. I've asked for that since the character came out, and I was like, that'd be so cool if she can launch that minion to the top of the moon. And here she can launch that minion to the top of the moon and launch a cool surprise attack that's not as obvious. Like, I think it's cool that she has a way to approach with the minion where it's like, it's coming, right? But you gotta deal with Jackal moving forward and then that minion above. It's kind of like dealing with Zato when he does Frog, essentially. A little bit more effort, but it's good. All right, so now that we did this, let me give you my quick little synopsis here, and we'll close this video out. So all in all, I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I do feel like the game is in a very, very good place. I think most of the cast members are all viable for the most part for competitive play. I think they're all viable for even just casual play, right? Especially casual, because you play what you want in casuals, right? But I feel like right now where the game is, this is the first time I can tell you guys with the straightest of faces since maybe like release that like I'm actually happy with this patch. I'm actually like, okay, this is good. This is where I believe Guilty Gear needs to go. Like, I'm totally okay with Strive in the way it is now. There are some things that I think could still be better, right? Like, I still think from a systematic point of view, I still think that the landing recovery from double jumps and getting punished for double jumping, I still think is really bad. I think allowing people to still get randomly punished that way is just super awful, because losing a tournament match like that, for thousands of dollars, knowing that your opponent tried to swing at you and you wanted to block and you got punished when you landed, does feel very, very bad. It may not be at 100% consistency, but it does feel bad. That aside, I think that's the only major change I'd like to see into the game. I know I've had other videos talking about things like jump cancels and things like that, but the more that I've kind of explored Strive, the more I kind of just understand that, like, okay, if the game keeps working like this, then I feel like those things like jump cancels, like extra jump cancels, may not be necessary. But I would like to see maybe a couple more dash cancels. I think now maybe jump cancel, maybe not nearly as much, but I think now that I've played a lot more Strive and looked at a lot of things and really, really analyzed like more of the game's design, I do feel like dash cancels, I think, are going to be the better move than jump cancels. Burst baiting, as much as I used to have issues with, now I don't think it's really that big of a deal anymore. I'm starting to understand even more so now than ever that, like, there's a lot of ways around it and there's a lot of ways you can deal with it. So I think it's okay. I think it's good that players have more of a chance to escape certain situations, because damage is still an issue with the game, right? In that regard, right? Which leads me to the next thing, which is damage, right? I think damage is the next thing that kind of just needs to get touched just a tad bit more. I think they're on the right track. I think now that would be like the utmost, like, last thing, other than adding like special moves, which I think maybe that could be the other thing, right? Maybe season 3, maybe you could leave the damage maybe the same, but just add more special moves. Maybe that could help mitigate, like, thinking about damage output, because right now the way they've kind of done damage mitigation, I think it is good. Like, using your burst to completely, like, using your burst to refresh your risk gauge and make that at 0. I think that was one of the best changes to the game, like, period. Like, that helped. Like, if you were wrong on your burst, yeah, you'll die, you'll definitely get beat up, but you're not gonna just lose outright because the risk gauge is still there. You know what I mean? So the fact that it completely depletes is really good. So again, they've done small things to kind of mitigate damage output. I just think maybe just a 5% more damage reduction across the board would kind of help the game just a bit more. If they opt to not do that, I think that's okay too still. I don't think it's not that much of a deal breaker, but not dying in 2 interactions is always nice. You know what I mean? Being able to play a little bit more neutral game is nice. The games don't have to end in 30 seconds, you know, but, you know, if you're playing bad, it will end in 30 seconds or less, to be honest with you. But at the end of the day, you know, without rambling on too much here, I am definitely happy with this patch. I can tell you guys with a straight face, I really like this patch. I think it's good. I think it's definitely fun. I think now we're at the point now where hopefully season 3 we get, you know, I think right now we're at the point where we need more special moves and maybe some adjustments to the system mechanics. And other than that, I think Strive's going to be in a good position moving forward. So, you know, here's to the future of Guilty Gear Strive, to be honest with you. And hopefully you guys have been enjoying the patch as much as I have. So, with that being said, let me close it out here. Let me not get too wordy here. I gave you my little synopsis, talked about all the characters and where they are right now, my personal opinion. Again, not a tier list. So, let me know how you guys are feeling in the comments below. How are you guys feeling about Guilty Gear Strive right now? How's the patch treating you guys? Talk to me. Let me know. But yeah, let me get up out of here, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Peace.